Hi, my name is Michael Turton, and I'm here with Katy Hui-Wen Hung, the author of A Culinary History of Taipei, along with veteran travel writer Stephen Crook. Katy, it's such a pleasure to have you on the show now.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Wow. I wanted to, before we were talking about a couple of interesting stories that I wanted to ask you, right? I asked you, how did you define what is culinary history, and how did you define Taipei when you were out there thinking about this project? And you told me a couple of very interesting stories. One about mushrooms.
Right. So basically, I was living abroad, and I sort of came back to Taiwan to see a bit more of my mother, who was taken unwell at that time. And culinary history, one of the motives of me doing this book is actually to relearn Taiwan, because I've been away for so long.
Right.
So before I started living abroad from 1984, the culinary history in Taiwan is really about Chinese food. It's about Chinese food, and the Taiwanese food is really 小吃, street food, and it never had a role in a state banquet.
Ah, right.
Yeah. So and I've been living abroad since 1984, maybe 20 odd years, and I started to notice things that I haven't heard before. For example, like Taipei is famous for 胡椒饼, that sort of thing, which was not what we had, or 福州饼,
right.
胡椒饼, which was not what we had before. And I started investigating a bit due to my book research, and I realized it is something to do with 1989 about one country, one product. Is it?
Yeah, OVOP, one village, one product.
That's right.
The government policy.
Yeah, it was introduced to Taiwan around 1989. So just after the martial law was lifted.
Right.
So the democracy actually also had an impact on how Taiwan promote their culinary history. So from then on, I sort of know the focus about this Taiwan culinary history. I don't know what else that you want to know about this part.
Well, I was very interested, because when I started to think about what would be the boundaries of this project, you know how projects are. Every time you imagine them, they double in size, right? And so I thought, where are you going to find the limits of culinary history? How are you going to define what culinary history is? And you had said, oh, I went to Portland and I picked up a book on the culinary history of Portland.
Okay, sorry. I should have told you. This book is a series called Food Biography of Big Cities. So it's a series. There's already like a big city like New York and many European and America. So Taipei, Taiwan is the first book in Asia to be included in this series.
Oh, how wonderful.
Yeah. So it has, sorry, I didn't tell you, it has a guideline. It has a guideline about which chapter should be included in where. That sort of thing.
Oh,
okay, yeah. So that was, I think that was your question.
Yeah.
So the first important chapter was obviously immigration. Immigration is a very big topic in this series, because without immigration, you can't have a today's core city. Every significant city in this world today in the 20th century has to have a vibrant immigration history.
Right.
Yeah. So we have a guideline, and from guideline you are able to develop your own. There's flexibility how you develop your own content. Yeah.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mention that. Yeah.
I understand now. But you had talked about the reason I mentioned Portland, because you had said that you had gone to Portland and there was a Japanese temple there, and it had been connected somehow to mushroom cultivation in Portland, and then you connected that back to Taipei.
Because I haven't done this sort of thing before. I wasn't a writer, or I wasn't in any food history. So I thought, if I was going to do a book that is okay, I need to look at the past samples. So I found a copy of the Portland, Culinary History of Portland, in this series. I actually found a hard copy of it. So I read it through. And something struck me is the mushroom. Then I look at it and I realized it was Japanese introduced the mushroom cultivation, the mushroom growing industry in Portland.
Oh.
Then there's some history about Japanese immigration history in Portland.
Right.
I look at it and I thought the climate and everything, it just made me feel that there must be some connection with Taiwan.
Uh-huh.
So I decided to maybe to write about mushroom, co-author an article with Stephen Krug in the very beginning of our book research period. So we went to different places in Taiwan, like Qinchen up in the mountain and that sort of things, to make some mushroom discovery. And yeah, the finding was, yes, it was also in Taiwan that the Taiwan's log mushroom farming was also introduced by Japanese.
So this log mushroom farming is farming of what in English we call the shiitake mushroom?
Yeah, xianggu. Xianggu is only shiitake mushroom. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Where do they farm it now in Taiwan? I think you said something about the Thai.
Oh yeah, we did an article a lot, mainly Nantou.
Yeah.
Nantou, Wufeng, Taichung Wufeng.
Yeah.
Taichung Wufeng, and also Hsinchu, Qinchen, Wulai as well. Is the climate. Basically, if it's to do with indigenous people, it's always connected to Taya people.
Oh, why is it connected to the Taya?
I suppose it's because the area, the climate that is suitable for growing mushroom. It just happened to inhabited by Taya people.
How did you find this out? That the Japanese were connected to this?
Okay, so we went to Qinchen, up in the Qinchen, in a village. Somebody took me there. And on the road, you could see lots of log mushroom there. And the host came out and I spoke to him. He is maybe about 20 odd years old, a young man.
Yeah.
So I started asking questions. I said, I was just curious, how did you learn about all this? Or how did you follow? And he said, and he started to look a bit embarrassed. So I don't know anything. So he said, I had to call my dad. So he called his dad out. And I saw dad is about maybe 60. And I said, how did you learn how to do all this? If you call it a tradition, and tradition must be back quite a few generations away. And he said, my uncle was doing it. And I said, oh, so how old is your uncle? He said, oh, he passed away now, but he was born in a Japanese colonial period, that sort of thing. And I said, oh, so did you have any idea that how did your uncle learn how to do all this? And he said, Japanese told him.
Wow.
Japanese told him how to do all this, yeah.
So then what happened during the martial law period?
Right. So I was just getting a bit curious that why haven't I heard about this at all when I was living here for 20, 30 years? Suddenly, everywhere you see in Wulai, everywhere you see these Taya people growing nice log from mushroom. And he said, during the KMT government, they were forced to go underground because the KMT, they will control everything, they centralize everything, right, including mushroom industry. So they have to go underground. Doesn't mean that they stop doing it or anything. They still do it, they just have to go underground.
So then who did they sell it to?
That I'm not quite sure, but certainly it would be exported to Japan, that's certainly. But maybe other places, I just wouldn't know. And maybe they actually get quite good money from it. They must have, if they could have done it, if they kept it going underground, and they obviously had to pay off officials or get it out without them knowing somehow. Yeah. It had to be very profitable. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, so that's the mushroom bit, yeah.
And then you started telling me another story about pigs in Hungary. Yeah.
So very quickly, so when during the proposal stage, I went to a international food festival here in the World Trade Center, and I met a Hungarian celebrity chef, a woman chef, and after her demonstration and talk, I sort of asked her that. Did you find anything similar between the Taiwanese cuisine and Hungarian cuisine? And he, without any second thought, she just said that yes, pigs. I said, oh, how pigs? And she said, the use of pig, every part of pigs.
Right.
They make it a cuisine. They make a dish with every part of pig. So that stuck to me, and I thought that is definitely a author of culinary history should learn about how to tackle this issue. That stuck to me.
Right.
And so on an opportunity when I was in UK one Christmas time, and I thought, I might as well just take a plane to Budapest. It's only a couple of hours flight, and see what I can find there. So on a tour or a bus tour, we went to a place, and I was just looking at some books, and I suddenly saw a very thick book about Hungarian food history book. And I just browsing it through, and I suddenly saw a section about pigs and about Ottoman and this and that. And I look at it, bingo, that's the answer. That the Ottoman has controlled Hungary for 200 years, or
the
maybe
Ottoman Empire,
the Ottoman, maybe more than 200 years. And the Ottoman, they being Muslim themselves, they don't eat pork. So obviously, the troops and the Ottoman Empire, they took away all the good stock, livestock, in everything except pigs. So the Hungarian locals, they were left with no decent meat to eat except pigs and pork. So that's why they developed a pork-eccentric cuisine of using every part of pig to make a dish.
Right.
Yeah. So that made me think. So I was inspired first in Taipei, but then I found the answer in Hungary. I thought that's quite amazing. So during the research, I was starting to look and see why Taiwanese also is quite famous in pigs, and also Hakka, quite famous in pigs. Yeah. And just look at it, and I suddenly realized that's also bingo, that the Chinese character Jia is a pig under a roof.
Yeah.
So every household have a pig. That makes a family. That's a household. That means Jia. So that's how do I say that? Things connected. Just probably doing nothing, just by looking around and just things connected. I think that's quite a good feeling about it.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, it is a good feeling. Yeah.
The Taiwanese don't eat. They it's a tradition, right? Among older Taiwanese, you don't eat pig. You don't eat cattle.
That's right.
You need them to plow.
Yeah. So.
Wow. So it sounds like a fantastic book. How long did it take you to write it?
I would say altogether, co-author with Stephen 3 years. I would say altogether,
3 years,
including proposal and everything. But the actual writing is 18 months, because in the contract we have to deliver the final draft in 18 months after we sign the contract.
I see.
Yeah.
I've actually used some of the articles that you two produced in classes that I've taught, because they're so fascinating, especially the one about the 10 or 12 American food products, the I-1 mango, and how soy milk factory was first started by a missionary in Taiwan. The American influence here is just enormous, and I taught a class on that a while back. So we had just been talking also about your amazing family, which goes back here to when? When did your ancestors first arrive?
My father's side is from Quanzhou, and my mother's side is from Zhangzhou, and they both came to Taiwan, settled in Taiwan in Qingdan as Qianlong.
Qianlong. So that's the late 18th century, mid to late 18th century.
That's right, yeah.
So that's basically Taiwan right there. 45% of the people are from Quanzhou, and another 35 are from
Guangzhou. And I also must say that when they came over to Taiwan, they were just very, very poor people. Literally, they have maybe their possession is really just a couple of pair of trousers, and that's all. My paternal grandfather's side, and they came over with maybe one pair of trousers to share between father and son. It was really as poor as that. So my paternal side eventually made some fortune by working extremely hard by selling rice shop, selling rice.
That's what Quanzhou people do, right?
But my maternal side is by selling wine.
Oh, did they make it themselves, or they bought it from other people?
Somehow they all have somebody to. Thanks to that, somebody just told them the technique. But anyway, they did work. People during those work extremely hard to make some fortune. So one is by wine and one is by rice.
So does your family still make wine then?
No. I'm talking about
they
three or four generations away from me.
Right. Yeah.
At least 3 generations away. Yeah.
And then we had moved on to talk about your maternal grandfather, the one.
So my maternal grandfather is Zhu Zhaoyang.
Yeah.
He was a founder of a school. Quite a famous school, senior high school for Taiwanese called Yanping Zhongxue.
Right.
And so the story went, he was a very clever kid, and he was the first colonial Taiwanese kid that was sent to Tokyo University to study.
So he's the first kid from the Japanese period here who was sent off to Japan to study.
Not the
Tokyo
University.
Tokyo University. Oh, of course.
You have to know that Tokyo University is really
the top university at that time.
Not even Japanese kids can get in, let alone a kids from there. So according to his biography, that it was quite a big news at that time.
Sure, I bet.
Yeah, quite a big. So he actually got a job in the Japanese government doing finance, that sort of thing, before he even graduated from Tokyo University. So after he graduated, he was immediately appointed as a senior staff of governmental finance department, that sort of thing. So he was quite a high profile position.
This is in the 1930s, right?
Before that, because my mother is the first child. My mother was born in 1930, so my mother was born in Tokyo.
Oh.
Yeah, so my mother was born in Tokyo, and 1930, and my mother didn't come back to Taiwan with my grandfather until she was 16 or 17.
So right after the war.
That's right.
Yeah.
So during which time my grandfather had a very high profile and comfortable position in Tokyo, but he decided to give it all up to come back to Taiwan to establish a first university for Taiwanese.
So this was like before the end of the war.
This was, like I said, 1946.
Oh, okay, I see.
When my mother
also came back.
First time came back to Taiwan with my grandfather.
Okay.
Yeah, so he set up that university. So that university, his original ambition was to set up a university. It's called Yanping Daxue.
Right.
But soon after, that was 1947, yeah. But soon after, 2 years after, not even 2 years after that, Ba is 1947, right? Yeah. So Ba, it was destroyed by the KMT. So a few of the teacher were just murdered.
Of course.
Yeah, murder.
So sad.
And he himself was locked up for 3 months, but luckily somebody rescued him out. His younger brother wasn't so lucky. He was locked up in Guyana for 10 years. So Yanping 学院, today, if you look at the traditional justice document cases, now they are trying to
for the Transitional Justice Commission.
Overturn. It's actually one of the cases that is known, that waiting to be
adjudicated.
Yeah.
Wow. And are the papers on that public now? The documents?
It should be, if they say. I haven't really looked at the document, but anyway, it's definitely, if you just Google it in Chinese, it's definitely one of the cases that they were looking at, or they are looking at, or maybe they have finished looking at. I don't know.
So where did you grow up when you were a little girl? Where was the family house?
I'm the 100% Taipei-ren.
Yeah.
I was born here, Taipei. It's 100% university, everything. So my entire education was spent in the martial law area.
In the martial law.
I was born in the martial law area, and I grew up. I graduated from university. Martial law area, higher education. Then I went to USA for a master. But for our generation, maybe quite a unique situation that we were actually born and educated entirely in the martial law area.
Yeah. So it must have really been a shock then to go overseas at that time.
It was really quite, it was a relief. Suddenly you have all this freedom.
Right.
But it was still very tricky. In the university, you should see a KMT slides in the campus slides.
Yeah. In 1989 when I was at, or 1991 when I was at GW, they would follow me around because I would spoke up in class about Taiwan.
Yeah. So it was still quite tricky and my parents still didn't want to talk about anything about that at all. So
when did you learn all this history? Much later, after you came back?
I learned about what?
Your family's history. Your father's connection with Erba, or your grandfather's, connection with Erba.
All these stories and all these books, they were all published at least maybe a decade after the martial law era.
Right.
People were still frightened
Of course.
to talk about it.
If you look at the opinion polls, you can see the identity shifting in the 90s as people became more comfortable saying, oh, yeah, I'm Taiwanese.
Yeah, I just give you one example. My paternal father, Zhu Zhaoyang, is actually, I know you didn't know about it, a song scholar called Zhu Xi. Yeah, right. So my paternal father never ever mentioned about this connection at all until literally maybe 3 years before he passed away. That was like 20 years after martial law was lifted. And he never say why or anything, but I now know it's because he didn't dare to, because that might be a threat to his family, himself.
You mean because of this old connection?
Yeah, because this Song dynasty connection during martial law is a connection to communists, isn't it?
I guess so. Wow.
No, it's not.
I wouldn't have thought that, but
no, it was.
I mean, it's 1,000 years old, right? Song
yeah.
dynasty
Living in that part, any little connection
can get you sent up.
Yeah.
Why was your uncle sent to Green Island? Do you know?
Oh, just for pathetic reason that because he was seen having a meal with somebody who's connected to Ba.
Oh God.
Something like that.
Yeah, of course. It's always some
they don't need a
ridiculous
reason
shit like that. Yeah.
They didn't need a reason. If they didn't want to take you, they just take. They didn't need a real reason. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what was your paternal grandfather's?
Okay, so my paternal grandfather, they came over from Quanzhou. Then the Ba Memorial Peace Memorial Park. There's like a stone gate.
Yeah.
With 吉公好义. Yeah. Near the concert hall, maybe at the back.
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Not the one in the front, which is like a woman. Anyway. So that was in memory of one of my ancestors for donating lands to Taipei.
What's the story behind that?
So the ancestor is called Hong Ten-Yun. So what's the story before of that? So he donated land to build halls for during the days they have exams.
Sure.
Their exam. So people from all over, the students from all over Taiwan, they will come over to Taipei to take the exam.
Yeah.
So they need a place to stay. They need a place to be settled when they take the exam. So he donated a vast land around today's Taipei railway station, that area, for this purpose.
And those halls are all gone now, of course.
Yeah, but that whole area, Taipei railway station, the whole area belonged to the Hong,
your family.
Yeah, that's right. So he donated.
This was must have been in the middle of the 19th century then. But at that time, didn't people come over from China to study in Taiwan because it was easier to do the exam here, or was somehow better? Remember reading that.
I think that was Taiwan, from people students from all the Taiwan.
Okay.
Not
all over
connected.
China.
No
connection across the strait.
No.
So how did your ancestor amass so much land?
This ancestor is through rice.
Oh, that's the ones who were buying and selling rice.
Through rice. Then he became quite a wealthy man because of this rice.
Right.
And then he decided one of the reasons he donated them is because he wanted to contribute back to the society.
Of course.
Yeah. So the one interesting thing, this is also quite a bit of Taiwan history, is that he actually adopted a Pimpu boy.
Oh.
He adopted a Pimpu boy. So that was clear on my Pimpu ancestry side of it. So I mean, that's actually recorded. I can actually tell you which one is that. So he adopted a Pimpu boy, and the Pimpu boy. How did we find out? Because it's not in the family history. It's not in the family tree.
Right.
People don't write this sort of thing down in the family tree. It's one of my cousins. Suddenly, one day, he was just interested in that sort of thing. And he noticed the clothes this ancestor, Hong Ten-Yun, wore is identified in a very tall man, maybe 180 centimeter tall man. But his son is maybe no taller than 160 centimeter. by the clothes you wear. Because we actually have those clothes. We actually have the clothes they wore.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, we have the handle. So he discovered this gap in height. So that's one thing, you know. Why would a father and that sort of thing? Yeah. Then he noticed something about the Pingpu, their furniture arrangement is different from the Fujian Han people.
Of course.
Yeah, and he, you know, like when you go in, the vase, you know, they have maybe like ornaments, the vase, which has some significance. They will put in different places, that sort of thing. And he looked at the old picture, and he realized that this is not Han, this is not a Fujian, this is not a Quanzhou Han people do things.
Right.
You know. Then he started to investigate, and eventually, yeah, it's all true. So one of my ancestors is Pingpu origin. So I'm, let me think. I'm maybe 116 of Pingpu. Yeah, so that's for my paternal side. Yeah.
Wow, what an interesting story.
Apart from obviously my paternal side from Quanzhou, it's also quite likely they have Spanish or even Dutch connection, because Quanzhou is a very popular.
It was the biggest port in the world.
Yeah, that's right. So we could also have that. So my father himself, a doctor, he's a very scientific oriented man. So he himself said that he is either 116 or 132 of a Dutch.
How does he know that?
How did he know that?
Have you found a Dutch ancestor in your family tree, or? You know, that's
no. It's not in the family tree, because it would be from his mother's side.
Right.
Normally, the Han people, they don't put woman's side in the family tree.
Oh.
So the woman's side is a bit difficult to trace back. Unlike the male side is probably all written for big family like us. Maybe it will be. That's why I can actually tell you which ancestor is Pingpu. My ancestor is Pingpu.
Yeah.
But the maternal side is more difficult. But it's more different. But anyway, that's what I was told. That's what he told me. So I mean, it's not uncommon to think that Taiwanese have all this complicated bloodline, is it?
Well, let's put it this way. You and I know this, right? But I think a lot of Taiwanese themselves, they call themselves Han, and then they stop.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you know, they're not really. They don't really think about what kind of ancestry they could be having. They're not like Americans who play all these. Oh, I've got one from Italy and one, you know, like me. My great grandfather died. He was something like 104. He fought in the Franco-Prussian War. Died in the 1950s, and he came from Lvov, which then was a Ukraine. It was part of he was a ethnic Pole from what is now Ukraine, but it was then Austria-Hungary. So he migrated on this passport. He's all this fascinating stuff. Well, Americans are all into that kind of thing. But the Taiwanese don't seem
So how did you know this?
It's passed down as family lore. That's where my name comes from. I'm Polish, but I don't have one of those, you know, Polish names that has Auski on the end, right? I'm Turton because when he immigrated to the United States, he passed through England and he stayed in the town of Turton.
Yeah. So did somebody tell you, or you just found out? You just read something?
Both, actually, because my sister became a genealogical librarian, so she looked up some of this stuff too. But it's always been part of family history.
I would like to say that this is Taiwan history, because during martial is again to do with martial law as well.
Yeah.
During martial law, everything is blocked. You are not supposed to know it.
You mean they cut off the past?
No, you are not supposed to. You are not. It's dangerous for Taiwanese to pass on to their children to say that, look, this is our Taiwan history. You can't do that.
Right.
So my father, my parents' side, they would just keep their mouth shut because they were in fear of, you know, one day they will be in trouble and the children will be in trouble. I think that's.
So it was your generation when it got older that began to recover a lot of this history.
That's also again, after martial law, people have the freedom to discover truth, if you want to call it.
So people just kept all this stuff, all the records and the family trees and whatnot, but they never actually got rid of it.
That's my family.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't say about any others.
Okay.
I do have Taiwanese friends of my generation. They come and say that we don't have anything.
Wow.
But you have to know that when you say you don't have anything, somebody will just take it. Yeah, we don't have anything. But somebody will actually go and research and find out a lot of things. So it's an individual thing as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really
People
is.
have no whether you have interest or not. Because
Yeah.
if you do have interest, I bet you can find out a lot.
Right.
But somebody stopped there because they don't have interest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's what happened to your paternal grandfather, and your father? Where did he study to be a doctor?
When did he study to be a doctor? So my father was born. My father was born in 1926.
Right.
So he became a doctor when he was 21, 22.
So that would have been right after 228.
Yeah. I should
In
stop
Taiwan?
you. I should stop you for a minute to talk
Okay.
about my great grandfather,
Okay.
who owned the house of the Red House in Danshui. Now it's a restaurant.
Yeah.
The 红楼
Yeah.
餐厅. Yeah, now it's a restaurant. Yeah. So he owned it. He owned it once, and he lived there. So my father was born in the Red House
Oh.
in the Danshui. So that Red House is quite interesting because in the film, the San Pablo, Steve McQueen and San Pablo.
Yeah.
Yeah. That house is actually only existing building structure that was filmed. That was in that film today.
From Steve McQueen's film.
Yeah.
Sand
That was a
Pebbles.
house. It was the only existing building.
That was shot in the 1960s, right? It's it's about what, a U.S. Navy guy who comes to Taiwan. Yeah.
Yeah, and one of the scene that Stephen was standing there against the hill, and the shot, and so that the house up on the hill was where my father was born, and that was still standing there. all the others were either they built a temporary,
Right.
yeah, or just burned down. Like there used to be a grand post office that was burned down, or the Danshui was heavily damaged by the bombing, U.S. bombing.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So lots of damage and during that time as well. There's a grand theater is all damaged, but this Red House where my father was born is only standing building today. Yeah.
So your father was educated in Taiwan.
Yeah. He was educated in Taiwan, then went to today's National Taiwan University Hospital. Training and become a doctor. So yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Katy, if anyone wants to find a copy of your Culinary History of Taipei, where should they look in Taipei?
It's like Chengping, definitely. I've seen them so in Taipei.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
And you also brought, I see, 3 other books about your illustrious family.
Yeah, so I just quickly introduce this book. This book is probably not on sale anymore, but you can definitely find them in library. One is my great-grandfather, Hong Yinan, and he was the owner of Danshui Honglou. I just say, talk about him. So this is my father, is Hong Zupei. He's a medical doctor. He recently passed away. It's about neurology. He was a founder. He was a pioneer, shall we say, pioneer of Taiwan's neurology.
Oh.
Yeah. So this is my maternal father, the founder of Yanping 大学, Zhu Zhaoyang 回忆录. So all 3, if you're interested, they're all in library.
Oh, fantastic. Can you read off the titles real fast?
Okay, all right. So
洪一南。
台湾汉诗人洪以南的现代文明旅游足迹.
Okay.
That's my great-grandfather. My father is called 洪祖培教授，坚持台湾神经医学的拓荒者. My maternal grandfather is 朱朝阳回忆录.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you very much.
Oh, we will come?
Well, I think we've come to the end of our time here.
Okay, yeah.
And I thank you very much for your generous donation of time.
Pleasure, my pleasure, yeah.
Thanks. Hope to have you again on the show sometime. Talk some more.
Okay, yes, we'll do.
This has been brought to you by the Taiwan Report. For more content like this, become our patron at report.tw.
哎呦，就是那个台湾狗啦，最喜欢我的台湾狗了。